There is no knowledge more important in the study of physiology than osmotic pressure.
Hi guys! If you cover vegetables with salt, water is drawn out and they turn into pickles. If you pour salt on slugs, water is drawn out and they die. In this way, salt has the ability to draw out water. This might sound like common sense, but if you were asked to explain why this happens, you might struggle. In fact, it's because of something called osmotic pressure. This time, I'll be explaining the mechanism of osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure is not only involved in everyday phenomena, as mentioned earlier, but it also plays an important role in a wide range of areas, including oncotic pressure, edema, dehydration, inflammation, fluid balance regulation, and even pharmacology. Conversely, without an understanding of osmotic pressure, it can be difficult to grasp these concepts. So, in this session, I will make absolutely sure that you understand it. Let's get started. First of all, let's explain osmotic pressure visually. Here we have 2 beakers of salt water. This one is a concentrated saltwater solution, with a concentration of 3%. That's about the same as seawater. This one is a dilute saltwater solution, with a concentration of 1%. That's slightly higher than the concentration of bodily fluids. Let's put these 2 solutions into this impractical-looking container. Naturally, since the container is connected, the concentrated and diluted saltwater solutions will mix together. We've put in equal amounts of each, so we've made a 2% saltwater solution. This is a law of nature. It's common sense. Next, let's use the same container as before, but this time with a crafty addition. We'll place a special membrane in the middle of the container. It allows water to pass through, but not salt. This type of membrane, that allows certain things to pass through while blocking others, is called a semipermeable membrane. Let's put the concentrated and dilute saltwater solutions into the container with the semipermeable membrane attached. This time, because the membrane doesn't allow salt to pass through, the solutions can't mix freely. So, what will happen this time? In fact, it ends up like this. Mysteriously, the water level has changed. Also, the salt concentration has become about the same on either side. Let's replay what happened. Interestingly, water from the side with a lower salt concentration moves through the membrane, towards the side with a higher salt concentration. As a result, the side that lost water becomes more concentrated with salt. Conversely, the side that gained water becomes more dilute. As a result, both sides end up with roughly the same concentration. And the force that pulls water from the lower concentration to the higher concentration side is called osmotic pressure. Don't think about it too hard. Just remember that the side with the higher salt concentration pulls water towards it. While the formal definition is a bit different, this is an easy way to remember it. To summarize, when salt water of different concentrations is separated by a semipermeable membrane, the side with the higher salt concentration pulls water from the lower concentration side. This force is known as osmotic pressure. Now that we've understood what osmotic pressure is, let's learn a bit more about some important aspects. Osmotic pressure increases as the concentration of salt increases. That means, the stronger the salt solution on this side of the container, the stronger it will pull water. And one more thing. Let's say we have some 1% saltwater solution. A solution with a higher concentration than this is referred to as hypertonic, or a hypertonic solution. This is because the side with the higher concentration has a stronger osmotic pressure, or a stronger pulling force for water. If the concentration is about the same, it's called isotonic, and if it's lower, it's referred to as hypotonic. These terms are used quite commonly, so be sure to remember them as a set. At the beginning, I mentioned that osmotic pressure is at work when making pickles or dealing with slugs. But it seems strange, doesn't it? The semipermeable membrane necessary for the generation of osmotic pressure is nowhere to be found. However, it is, in fact, present. Where, you ask? In cells. Indeed, the cell membrane that surrounds the cells of living organisms allows water to pass through easily, but is less permeable to substances like salt, similar to a semipermeable membrane. Both plants and animals possess this natural semipermeable membrane. Let's see what happens as a result. When you sprinkle salt on vegetables, a highly concentrated saltwater layer forms on the surface of the vegetables, right where the cells are aligned. Moreover, the cell membrane functions as a semipermeable membrane. As a result, osmotic pressure is generated, pulling water from the inside of the cell across the cell membrane. It's through this mechanism that salt draws water out of pickles. The same principle applies to slugs. Now finally we can explain it. There's more to pickles than meets the eye. Now, let's finally apply this in the context of humans. For example, when you go to the sea and seawater gets into your nose, it hurts a lot, right? This can also be explained by osmotic pressure. The salt concentration of seawater is about 3%, which is significantly higher than that of body fluids, making it a hypertonic solution. Therefore, when the mucous membrane of the nose comes into contact with concentrated salt water like seawater, the water inside the cells, that is, across the cell membrane, is drawn out. As a result, the cells are stimulated, and you feel pain. But it's not just seawater. Even pool water or tap water hurts when it gets into your nose, right? This is because, contrary to seawater, the salt concentration is lower than that of body fluids. In this case, the opposite happens, and water enters the cells due to osmotic pressure. This also stimulates the cells, causing pain. So, what about the nasal irrigation solutions used to treat conditions like hay fever? In fact, these solutions are adjusted to have the same osmotic pressure as body fluids, that is, they are isotonic, to avoid such irritation. Of course, the same applies to intravenous fluids, they are adjusted to minimize irritation. A typical example is normal saline. Normal saline is adjusted to a salt concentration of 0.9%, which is isotonic with human body fluids. This is an important piece of knowledge, so make sure to remember it, including the concentration. So far, we have been discussing osmotic pressure in terms of salt concentration, that is, sodium chloride concentration. However, osmotic pressure can actually be induced by various substances that dissolve in water, not just salt. For example, in the case of sugaring, it is the osmotic pressure of sugar, rather than salt, that draws out the water. There's one important substance involved in osmotic pressure other than sodium that you should remember. It's a protein called albumin. Why should you remember it? Like sodium, albumin is deeply involved with osmotic pressure in the body and is very important in understanding various disease states. For details on how albumin is involved, make sure to subscribe to this channel and keep an eye out for updates. Let's recap before we finish. When solutions have moved from different concentrations are separated by a semipermeable membrane, osmotic pressure is generated, causing water to move from the area of lower concentration to the area of higher concentration. The side with the higher concentration has a higher osmotic pressure and pulls water more strongly. A solution with a higher concentration than another solution is called hypertonic, one with a similar concentration is isotonic, and one with a lower concentration is hypotonic. Normal saline is adjusted to have the same osmotic pressure as body fluids, with a sodium chloride concentration of 0.9%. Sodium and albumin are important substances involved in osmotic pressure within the body. Alright, are you feeling clear on the concept of osmotic pressure? If you're enjoying our videos, please subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more. Please drop your thoughts in the comments section below.